Hello there. My name is Basil Malik. I'm the president and CEO of Malik Incorporated, and welcome to part 3. Today we're going to talk about probably the more abstract part of the whole process, which is envisioning your solution. Whatever it might be, we've got a concept of a corporate wellness program. We have an idea of the things that we want to capture. Now, where do we go from here? You've talked about or thought about amongst your peers the thing that you're trying to create. Now, the fun part, or I like to think of it as fun, is thinking about how are people going to use it? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? How are they effectively going to do what you would like for them to do within that solution? And this is where a larger conversation really does need to take place, because you're talking about user experience. Not necessarily user experience bound by a solution just yet. Yes, again, we have in this series been talking about a no-code solution with Creatio as the base for that outcome. However, not all solutions will require you to use Creatio. In some cases, you may already have an application that's been deployed as a resource within your organization. So it should be worth at least considering it. I mean, if you're planning on putting it into something like Excel or Outlook, as we've talked about in previous episodes or previous parts, it warrants having a conversation of, does this need to go into an external or an additional place, or can we reuse something that we're already using? I mean, if something is that you've already paid money for, something that you're already subscribed to, is something that you can take advantage of, by all means, look there first, because it's going to save you the most amount of money. However, it's going to introduce boundaries, restrictions on this whole vision exercise that we're about to walk through. And realistically, it's not a lengthy process. You know your organization better than anyone else. So when it comes to how people are really going to take advantage of this solution that you want to roll out in front of them, you have to think about, all right, what am I asking them to do? What are the steps that they're going to have to make in order to do it? Now, this is typically a relatively abstract portion of the conversation, but it can help to have some sort of visual. So again, we'll go back to our board here. And in this, we're just going to adjust it. We've already got somewhat of our board that we have here. Now we're just going to take this, and you can start the process of, a new activity entry is needed. Then what? They will log into the solution, and then they will do something else. And then you build your workflow very similar to this. So it could be something else. Click button that says activity, and you keep walking through as much as you need to ensure that you get it to exactly the way that you want it. And once you start having this solution kind of start to finish and all the pieces in between, you want to diagram as much as you possibly can, because this is how you start uncovering the nuances that typically don't come up until after a solution goes live. So if you hypothetically walk from one box to the next, and where there are breaks, where there's deviations, where there's a gateway in the world of BPMN, or business process management notation, there is a need to have a conversation about what those caveats are. When does the logic break? When does something get introduced? At what point in the process might one path make more sense versus another? What outcomes do you have to anticipate? So this gets the juices flowing within the organization, within the project team itself. And it allows you to start coming up with ideas. What do you want this solution to look like? What solution do you want it to feel like? What are your absolute must-haves? And then conversely, what are your must-have nots? A lot of people think about solutions and what they absolutely must be, but it's always pretty easy to start with what you don't want your solution to be as well. It honestly becomes a bit of an absurd exercise at the beginning. We're talking about a wellness activity. Well, we don't want people to log every time they have a cheat meal. Okay, fine. We're not even talking about cheat meals, but that is one thing that this solution must not become. So with that parameter, and you don't want your employees logging their food inside of your solution, then that's not something that you really have to take into consideration. So therefore, that is part of your solution by providing some negative space that it shouldn't occupy. So that is the next start. And that is the next step. And once you get to a point where you can really start having the conversation internally about everything that you want it to be and everything that it should never become, that's when you start asking yourself, okay, what solution should we use? In some cases, it's very easy. As I mentioned several times, a lot of people default to Excel, but that's not always the best answer. It is an answer, but it doesn't have to be the only answer, nor is it likely the best. It's just the easiest. So with that, think about what your solution needs to be, what capabilities should the solution present, and then from there continue having the conversation as you start going into a platform selection process, because you've done all of this information gathering, you've figured out what it is, what it isn't. Now you need to start hazarding a guess at what software or solution should we be using to build and architect this for our employees to use on a regular basis. Therefore, what is the platform that ultimately makes the most sense for the outcome that you're trying to achieve and the user experience that you're trying to provide the people that will use it? So that's it for this one. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.